What's up guys, it's Ash here and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the rattiest formation in FIFA 23. Honestly, this formation, the 5-4-1, is absolutely disgusting. It's team of the season, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, I like to have this on balanced. This is because it gives you the greatest control over your defenders, where when you need to press, you're able to press, and then when you want to drop off and be a little bit more passive, you're also able to do so. So having this on balance just gives you greater control that the other settings do not give you. Now, moving on to the defensive width, I like to have this on 40. The reason for this is we can primarily defend the center of the pitch, like in a nice compact shape, but then when we need to cover the wide areas and reach out to an opponent that is on the wing, we are also able to do so. That is why we don't lower the width any more than that. Now, moving on to the depth, guys, I like to have this on 55 at the moment. The reason for this is the defensive line is neither too deep or too high. So what I mean by this is we're not going to get constantly pinned back because our defensive line is super low, and then we're not always going to get through balled either because it won't be super high. It's very nice and balanced, and honestly, I'm enjoying this very much. Now, moving on to build-up play, guys, I like to have this on balanced. This is because it gives you the most control over your build-up, where you're able to play more quickly when you need to, and then you're also able to slow it down when you want to as well. So you can get a nice mixture between slow build-up, fast build-up, which is why I don't suggest using the other two, because they restrict you to playing that style all the time. For example, trying to play a little bit slower with fast build-up won't work, and the same with slow build-up if you try and play quickly. Having this on balance just gives you a lot more variety in my opinion. Now, moving on to chance creation, guys, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it's the most meta option you can use, where basically your attacking players will bunch up against the defenders, so you can do the really overpowered 1v1 isolation plays. It also means your players will make the extra movements in the box, so you can get off the extra pass to guarantee the goals and minimize the RNG. Direct passing is a must in my opinion. Now, moving on to the attacking width, guys, I like to have this on 45. The reason I don't have it higher is because I feel like your players just get way too spread apart, if that makes sense. You kind of have to like fire missiles as passes just to get them to your teammates because everyone's so far apart. And likewise, I don't want it to be like super narrow either, otherwise it feels like your players are sat on top of each other. So I kind of go for something in between on 45. This just works really well for me with most formations, to be honest with you. Now, moving on to players in box, guys, I like to have this on 5 as always. The reason for this is it's bang in the middle, so we can get some players into the box so we can create chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which require both of these to be on 1. Link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now, moving on to the plays you want to use, guys. In the striker position, I suggest using a nice well-rounded striker. This is because it's a one-striker formation and you have to compensate for the fact that there's one striker instead of 2. So where you could get the balance between 2 players in a 2-striker formation, you have to get that all in one player in this formation. So I suggest going for a nice well-rounded player that can do a bit of everything from dribbling to passing to shooting, obviously, as well. So just go for a nice well-rounded striker and you'll have a lot more fun, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the left mid and the right mid, there's not too many restrictions here, but I suggest using really good attacking players, ones that have obviously really good pace and some creative ability, because these do act as like creators in the team at times. So it is important that you use very competent attackers. You don't really have to worry about their defensive stats though, as it's not too important. We've already got like a back 5 when we're defending, so you don't really need to worry too much about their defensive stats. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, I like to use a more defensive minded midfielder. This is somebody that's going to stay back while we're going forward and really add defensive security. It's important to implement some balance into the midfield because you can't just use all-out attackers in every position, otherwise you're going to crumble. So I'd suggest going for someone with a medium-high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defence and they're not too bothered about going forward, but just ensure that they are a really good defensive player. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, I suggest using a more box-to-box style midfielder. This is somebody that's going to attack and defend and have a bit more of a free roll. So if you can get it, a high work rate is super beneficial, as you get the maximum contributions in both attack and defense. But again, just ensure that this player has a nice well-rounded card so they're capable of doing a bit of everything. Now, moving on to the wing backs in the defense, you can kind of do what you want here. What I like to do is have like one more defensive minded, like solid fullback in Roberto Carlos. So he's still able to attack, but he's just got a bit more defensive capabilities. And then in the right wing back position, I like to go for a more like actual winger. This is somebody that maybe doesn't have the greatest defensive stats. Well, Bukayo Saka still has really good defensive stats on his TOTS cards, but not like fullback level, if that makes sense. So I like to go for a balance between the two, but you guys could use like two wingers if you want to, or like two fullbacks, but I do suggest at least having some competent attackers in the wingback position because they do go forward quite a lot. As for the three centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as meta as you can get them. There's really not too much to say about them, honestly. Just make sure they're nice and fast players with a medium high work rate, and yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Now, moving on to the player instructions, guys. On the striker, I like to have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because it's important that he does stay in the central areas because he is our only striker, so we don't want him drifting off super wide out of position because he's never going to be in the correct position to finish off our chances. So it's important that we do have him in the middle, so we always have like a focal point in the team. We also have him on mixed attack because you get a lot more out of this player. When you're using like a one striker formation, I think it's very important not to have your striker on getting behind because it makes them very one-dimensional and you're forced into just playing through balls and crosses all the time, which is not always the best option. So mixed attack, you get a lot more out of the player, they get more involved in the build-up and all sorts like that. Super useful, guys. Now moving on to both the left mid and the right mid, we have them on comeback on defense, cut inside, get in behind and get into the box for cross. Now we have them on comeback on defense, so they always get into the correct position when we don't have the ball. If you have them on basic defensive support, the players can be a little bit lazy and your defensive shape is not the best. So come back on defense, super important in my opinion. We have them on cut inside, so they're always looking to cut inside to the narrow areas of the pitch, the central areas, so they can link up with the striker. And you're going to see why this works as well with the wing backs. So we have them on cut inside, super useful, especially in this formation in my opinion. We have them on getting behind, so they're always looking to make those runs down the line because on these players specifically, the right mid and the left mid, if you don't have them on getting behind, sometimes they're a little bit static in their movement. We also have them on getting to the box for cross, so they're not hesitant to get into the penalty area when we want to get into the penalty box. So if we have them on balanced crossing runs, sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to actually commit, which is not always the best thing. So get into the box cross, super important in my opinion. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, the more defensive-minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. This is pretty self-explanatory. We just want him to stay back while we're attacking because he is a defensive player. So yeah, we also have him on cover centre though, so he does cover the central areas when we are defending. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, the more box-to-box style player, we have him on balanced settings like completely default and then cover centre. Again, pretty self-explanatory. He's got a bit of a free role in the team, so we kind of just let him do his own thing with limited restrictions. The only important restriction though is that we have him on cover center, so he does block all the attacks through the middle. Now moving on to the wing backs, we have them on join the attack and overlap. Now this goes hand in hand with one of the instructions we have on the right mid and the left mid. So like I said, we have the right mid and the left mid to both cut inside, so that means they're going to run a little bit more narrow, which means we're going to have a lot more space down the wing to get another player there because these players will not be occupying that space. So by putting these wing backs on join the attack and overlap, when the right mid and left mid run a bit narrow, these will make the overlapping runs to cover the wide areas, which makes us very difficult to defend against because we've got players in narrow areas and wide areas at the same time. Honestly guys, this is a super important instruction for this formation to be good in attack in my opinion. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 5-4-1. If you have enjoyed, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out guys, love ya.